You've just got the claw out and just gone to town on the dog's belly, and like you can just tell that you're taking them to heaven. The legs are kicking, it's all systems go, and you've got 2 tickets to paradise, and that dog has just boarded the plane. This is what I imagine Wargroove is doing to Advance Wars fans. You know what, even Tactics fans in general. This is just like, we're all aboard that train and we're taken back off again. Let's go! For me personally, it's the tactics gameplay that I love. It's the depth that I need in a game like this. And it's the old school eye candy that screams, I am old school and I am proud. This is just one of those indie games out there that really shows the men from the boys of indie games. And there's a lot of them out there, but this is definitely just jumps into that pool of men. Whoa, it sounds like Final Fantasy VII. I like to think of its chiseled jaw like an eye-pleasing menu that are not only interesting and beautiful to look at, but also convert to handheld perfectly. Its thick, groomed beard is the opening cutscene. It just shows the level of care that went into the presentation. It has nothing to the gameplay, yet everything to the game. And last thing, its cross-platform support shows a mature side. A side that says, the schoolyard is for battle, I am here for war. I'm not going to tell you how good the story is, or how the puzzle mode and arcade helps add to the experience. As much as I want to, I'm not going to dive into the crit system, which relies on actual tactics and not just chance. I'm not even going to spill the beans on why multiplayer, where you can literally just walk away from your console, turn it off, and come back and join back where you were, is one of the best quality of life experiences I've seen in a long time. Why am I not going to jump into any of this? Because I haven't played enough. Like, the game's only been out for 2 days. I've hardly played any of that main, meaty, juicy stuff. I've just dived into a whole bunch of other stuff, and one thing in particular that I really want to go deep on today. So I want to talk about this deep hole, this deep, unescapable hole that I have just fallen in and I cannot get out of. It is so hard to escape from this hole, and that is the custom content. Now, I'm going to warn you that it is dark down there. It is scary, but it's almost everything that I ever dreamed of. I say almost because there's a little bit of some light, but it's good. Alrighty, for anyone who made it through that intense opening, hello, we're here to the part where I get to talk about my favourite part of it, the creative part. Now, it takes a certain type of person who wants to create something. Not everyone wants to get into this, and that's totally understandable. I've always been that person that's like, I love to create, I love to jump into this stuff. Like RPG Maker, when that was around, that gave someone like me who has no idea what coding is, no idea how to code, and an easy way, an accessible way to make RPGs. And so I put hundreds of hours into that game, and I really loved, if you can call it a game, but I really loved it. But I wish I had followed through with something, because nothing ever came out of it. And that's kind of the best comparison to make with this, is that like, if you know what RPG Maker is, this is basically RPG Maker for tactics games. It's that dense, there's a lot going on here, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's first of all jump back to where it all begins when you jump into it, because you have the option to either create or share. And by share, I mean like you can jump into there, and the share option is just where you can find other people's maps and download them and add them so you can just play them. So if you don't want to get creative, you're like, oh, this is too daunting for me, this is still going to be interesting for you, because there's a lot of stuff here that I'm going to tell you that you're going to be like, oh wow, this is how deep it can get. And then you can go into the share part of it and find other people who are doing deep stuff like this and really getting into the weeds. And this is the thing that made Mario Maker so great when it was a big thing, and hopefully that comes back. Please come back. But the reason Mario Maker was so great is not that just you could create levels, not that just I could create levels, but people out there with like bigger brains than me could create really fantastic stuff that is just enlightening to see, like just puzzle levels that you're like, you never thought about that way to play with Mario, and they did. And then for people who don't really want to go that deep into it, there's just more Mario levels. You know what? Here's a game that you're just going to have unlimited amount of levels to play. And this is what Wargroove can be with a lot of community behind it. It can just turn into like, hey, you've done that main campaign, now play all these other campaigns done by people with brilliant minds who wanted to put a lot of time into this. Which was the biggest problem with Mario Maker, because if you jumped into that, not only would you get thrown in with the people with brilliant minds, but you also got thrown in with the people with not such brilliant minds. So you had to almost do your own type of like weeding there to find out what was and what wasn't. With that out of the way, let's get into the most exciting part here for me, the create side, because this is where you get to either create maps. If you just want to create like a single map by itself and let's say just put troops on troops, you could do that. Or if you want to make a full overarching campaign that goes from map to map to map with branches and everything, totally, you can do that as well. And I'm going to go into how deep this goes, but before we can really get into that, we need to start at the shallow ends of the pool, because I think without understanding where the kids start, we can't make it to the deep end. Now, the best part about making one of these maps is you don't have to be that type of person who's like, I want to get super deep into this, because no, you do not have to do that. If you're just the type of person who wants to go in there, make a map, throw some like water around, some trees, some paths, and then just call it a day with some units on either side, totally up to you. You can do that, have fun, go ahead, because it is that shallow if you need it to be. Even if you just want to string a few of these maps together and call it a campaign and call it a day, done, totally up to you. And it's really easy to do that. Like, none of that stuff is complicated. It's literally just tiles that you're just laying down where you want. It's that simple. Okay, let's pretend you've got your feet wet now, you've dived into it a little bit, you know what you're getting into, and you're thinking, well, I could probably get up to my knees now. Maybe you want to start by getting into the cutscene, because this is kind of the next layer that's still really, really accessible, and they've made it kind of easy to jump into. And it adds so much flavor to this. In fact, I think this is one of the most things I'm most happy they added. Like, a lot of these other options just seem like, oh yeah, that's what you'd expect from a map editor. But these cutscenes, this actual cutscene maker that like they've made their own cutscenes in, obviously they probably had their own thing, but they've made their own cutscenes in. It's really kind of magical that they put this in here. Now, since we're already up to our knees, there's the map properties and stuff that we can dive into as well. These are really accessible. They're just things like how much health you want to start with, how much gold you want to gain per turn, just things like that you can just mess around with. Even just how big the map is. So you can make it so the maps actually go up to like 100 by 100. So you get these really big maps, and I pity the fool who makes a map that big. That is ridiculous. But like, it's exciting that someone has the opportunity to make something that big that I can spend 100 hours just trying to get through. Don't do that, don't be that guy. Now, there's plenty more options that you can mess around with in there, but this is where things get interesting, because this is where we get into the event manager. This is where you actually get to make things happen in the game because of reasons. And by that, I mean there's actual reasons. So like, you could have what they call conditions and actions in the game. So under a certain condition, an action will happen. Under the condition that you have 500 gold, you get victory. It can be as simple as that. Or under the condition that it's the 5th turn of the map, you will gain an extra unit. There's just so many, and they all can layer upon each other. So you could have condition is met, then action will happen. Maybe you want to make it so every time you kill an enemy, another enemy will spawn, meaning that you have to make it to the other side of that map before you get killed. It's not about killing the enemies, it's about surviving. Maybe you want to make some sort of ghost map like that. There's lots of different things that you could do with this, and like, I really was trying to scratch the surface here, but like, just know that this gets deep. This gets real deep. Like, I made this map that just had 2 bridges, and it just said that, okay, there's a troop on each bridge, and every time you kill one of those troops, unless you kill them both in the same turn, another one is going to come back. It almost makes like a puzzle game. You can make puzzles in this, and like, I'm so tempted to go deep, but honestly, I recorded this 5 minutes ago, actually probably 50 minutes ago, and I went way too deep and decided to come in here and do this again. The last 2 things that I want to touch on here before I get to my resolution, which you want to stick around for that, the flags and counters. The flags are basically like on and off switches. So you can just say when something will turn this flag on and off, and when it's on or off, something will happen. And then the counters act in a similar manner, but instead of just being on or off, exactly what you would expect. They count. So like, you can make it so like a counter every time you get hit. Every time you get hit, it counts 1. Once you've been hit 5 times, maybe you have a game over. Maybe you have it kill an enemy or spawn an enemy or do whatever you want. That's how they work. Starting to get deep again. Here we go. Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. This is why I'm glad that I just kind of got a stone and skimmed across everything else that we had to go over, because this is what you want to stick around for, and this is why I think that you could almost make a Breath of the Wild style campaign in this game. And we're going to have to like stick with me a little bit longer here, because there's something else we need to understand. That's how campaigns and all these flags work in that sense. So first of all, a campaign is basically linking maps together. So you have one map that links to another one, that links to another one. Maybe it branches, maybe it leads out to 2 maps. Maybe it just goes in 16 directions, who knows? You could have lots of maps all connected to each other. Now this is where it starts to get like a Breath of the Wild campaign. So first of all, you can have it so that the very first campaign leads to the last boss. The second level can be the last boss, as well as it leads in 2 other directions or multiple other directions. I think it's 2 is the most we can do, but a couple other directions. So now the player has the option to go straight from where they are now, from the first map to the last boss. But maybe the last boss is too hard, and that's the idea. That's why we have branching directions. Now we can go the other directions. And what this actually does is we can say, all right, so if you go these directions, we're going to make what I'm basically calling the divine beasts here. So you could go out in other directions, and when you complete a certain map, which we're going to call divine beast 1, 2, 3, and 4, every time you complete one of them, you could have it so it flicks on a flag. And this flag or this switch says, all right, now at the final battle level, when this flag is set to on, it will spawn more troops in for you. So it'll have like, and then you can get up to like 4 troops that spawn into there to make this final battle doable, to make it easier. And every single divine beast that you do, it's easier. You can go in and like, you can just do one and go back and try this if you wanted to, or you can do all 4. And this is just like a little bit of the creativity that can come from these type of options in this game. And this is why I'm just so excited to see what the community can do, where they can take this, where they are gonna write it, and where it's gonna end up. I also want to mention that PC is going to have like the best options here, because in the future, the really clued on people are going to be doing stuff like modding, and that's where it's going to get a little bit crazy, and we're going to just see stuff like Advance Wars made into this. But that's not what I want to go. I just want to talk about the Switch version and why I'm enjoying playing that at the moment. I'm a little bit bummed that like there's no touchscreen support, but like I understand it's a lot of work, so I understand why it's not in there. But it's still really good, and this is the reason why is that I can just do this while sitting on my couch. And I know that's like, oh, Eric, you just realized that about the Switch? But like, yeah, no, I know, but making maps while just sitting on the couch is way cooler, because like, I don't always want to make a map while just pumping 100% of my attention into looking at a TV. Sometimes I just want to sit down, relax, sit back and just, I don't know, what does RGT 85 say? But yeah, sometimes I just want to be able to create a map, you know, something that just doesn't always need 100% of my attention, while just doing something else at the same time. And I feel like I say that a lot with a lot of Switch games, but this one is another big one that I really like that feature of. And yeah, that's going to do it for today. So what I want to know is, those of you who are playing Wargroove, or those of you who maybe even haven't, tell me what you think of it. Tell me if you're enjoying it. Is a map maker for you? Or you're just more of like, I love tactics games, give me the tactics part of it, and I'm not going to touch the map part. Let me know what you're thinking, and remember, for great Nintendo entertainment, you can count on me. I'm not sure if I said remember then or remember. End screens. We talk about a lot of dumb, silly, crazy, and fun things. I don't know if I've talked about this dumb, silly, crazy thing yet. The Snippets cookie that I got from pre-launch of the Switch, I said I was going to eat this on Twitter a long time ago, and I still haven't done it. I'm a little bit afraid to. I'm like, 2 years is a long time to be keeping a cookie. It doesn't have any mold on it, but I don't know. Maybe I'll eat that one day. I'll keep you all posted. Goodbye.